present you the Moving Memorials performance that, as you saw in the presentation, has 7 to 8 artist books that I have been doing since 2012, and it's like an ongoing series since every new work comes and joins to and be part of the Moving Memorials. I'm gonna start with this artist book, which is an altar book. It's called El Siglo. So this is the newsprint that should be spread out the day of the coup in Chile on September 11, 9 a.m. 1973. That couldn't be spread because the coup was going and our government palace was bombing. So it's called Militaries Betray the Country, and I did it in 2 different languages. So what I did it was to reprint like a fake, or like I pretend to reprint what should be spread out. So this is one of a kind. It's part of the New York Public Library, and this is my own copy, which is not the final one, but this is all screen print. And as you can see, so it says Militaries Betrays the Country, Golpe en Chile, like a coup in Chile. And then this is a photo of Pinochet, photo of Allende, and then you can see like different how you can alter. This is not the complete one, but different kinds of photograph that replace what was supposed to be printed that day. So with this here. Actually, this actual newsprint is an altar book that shows the date of September 11 at 2 different times on the political history of Chile. The first moment refers to the military coup executed by Pinochet in 1973, and the second to what happened in the month of September 2010, when 11 miners were rescued after a landslide. Both newspapers, the Embassy of Chile News and El Siglo, are designed by myself, and the first one is a real newspaper, while the second one is a fictitious one. So after, before 3 years before of the coup in Chile, there was an important meeting here in the United States during Nixon administration, where Henry Kissinger was present. So they planned how to defeat the supposed to be elected President Salvador Allende. So this work is called Make the Economy Scream, and it is contained on a copper box because the copper is the metal that we export the most. So the plan was like to collapse the economy, and then the copper went down, and then the coup came. So this is for me and for everyone historically a very key, important moment. And this has the actual meeting that is printed with letterpress on top of hankies. So I want to read it to you. This is from the classified documents from the archives here in the United States. So it says, meeting with the president on Chile at 1525 September 15, 1970. President John and Henry Kissinger. 1 in a 10 chance, perhaps, but save Chile. Worth spending, not concern risk involved, not involvement of embassy. 10,000, I don't know the number, available, more if necessary. Full-time job, best men we have. Game plan, make the economy scream. 40 hours for planned action. White 25 other secrets. So what is wrapped inside of this hanky and contained inside of this box, copper box, is full of disappeared in Chile, made of charcoal powder on top of plastic sheets. So this is of course not archival and will disappear twice. And you can see different portraits. So what I made, as for these ones, I filled out the floor of a studio in upstate New York, in an art residency, in order to see how the map of all, not all, but the people that is listed so far can be. So also part of the work is like when you touch it, you have the stains here as a call that you can be part of the search of the issue. So after that, March starts, and people start struggling and marching against the government palace in a way to search for their families. So protest starts, and what I made is this book, which is like the photo of the symposium, that is called Intermemory: Human Rights Violations in Chile, 1973-1990. And my idea was to make like an institutional critique, but that could be something, not a memorial that has to be in the places where injustices were committed, but otherwise that can travel around and be placed in different public collections, institutions, or universities, schools, wherever it should be, in order to disseminate, communicate, and spread the word. So this is a book that you can read like in a conventional way from left to right, but that can also start being as a cartoon. And this cartoon convert into this institutional critique. So, and then this flag structure conveys like different ideas that can be addressed to the issue which I was talking, that the past is our present and is the future of our sense. And so that's why I came out with this kind of idea of when we think about memorials, we always think about faces, names. So this has both, but in this kind of format. After that, during this period, the Chileans, with the support of the CIA, and afterwards the Nazis also. And one of the most important or differences that the dictatorship in Chile has, also like the Argentinian one had, that they made people disappear. So they have to create strategies, spaces, so everything kind of this. I don't know how. But, so this is called Indignity and Resistance in the Foothills of the Andes Mountain. And I put my attention in 2015 on this torture center, since it is a very symbolic and emblematic torture center where militaries make people disappear. I always start from a testimony, from a voice, from oral archives, from research, from declassified documents. So what I do like to do is to screen print, do etchings or something, but I always work with a text. So something that gives me the information, something reliable. So as for this case, I asked permission to this center is now a center of peace and a site of memory. So what I got first this is a quote from someone who was arrested, and he said, "I knew I was in Villa Grimaldi. I realized we were going up. It was known that Villa Grimaldi was in the foothills of the Andes mountain. I didn't know exactly where it was, but I knew I was at the base of the Andes mountain. I used to go up to the mountains and always climbed from this point. There was a breeze during the afternoon. You could feel the poplars. You could feel the wind hitting those poplars." So he was blindfolded. Yeah. So then it says the story of Villa Grimaldi, what happened inside and what happened after. These are the executed list of the people and the people who disappeared inside of the center. And then at the same position, this is the people who were inside but they could survive. So it's by dates, and some of them were pregnant, so there is like a different symbology that I added to the book in order to really remember. And at the same time, the structure of the repressors. And then the shape of the Andes Mountains start telling how beautiful was the surrounding of the torture center, while inside torturing was happening. So once it starts opening, you face this etchings of the day of the coup, and then start happening different scenes of torture and how the center operated inside. So what was important for me was to make images of torture, but also images of resilience. So some compañeros, how they give support to each other after a torture was happening. So it has this kind of two phases that the center operated as this way. So this was the main entrance where prisoners were brought, and once the militaries brought them to the tower right here, that meant that they were going to disappear. So everyone who was going to the tower. So this was called the death path, and now it is a memorial site. They blocked that path. They closed this door forever and opened a door right here and wrote the memorial here in a way to make the cross to don't do it again. So then in the very back of the book there are testimonies, oral archive, and one interview that I could make to a person who was inside of the tower for 3 months, and she resists, and she is now one who is willing to talk and to spread her testimony and be part of the reconstruction of memory. So when the dictatorship lasts 17 years, in 1990, in 1989, we made a plebiscite where people vote if we want to keep the dictator Pinochet or if we don't. Of course, the no won. So then we came into the so-called democracy that for me was like a pact deal, since we're still living a lot of contradictions and the Constitution of 81. So there are a lot of things that haven't been repaired. And I thought one of the ways the government had to make this reparation was to making in forms of truth and reconciliation. So one of the very well-known is the Rettig report, where families went to declare what happened to their families' cases, to the Vicaría de Solidaridad, and my idea was to, instead of close that case, to make a book that opened the case. So as for this one, it's called Memorial Landscape, Unveiling the Historic Truth of Chile. Memorial Landscape, Unveiling the Historic Truth of Chile is a book of resistance that carries forward the protest of history of the disappearance of people in Chile during the dictatorship of Pinochet. The abuses and human rights violations committed, such as forced imprisonment, torture, forced exile, and murder, creates a responsibility for the government to do justice for the horrors perpetrated in Chile between 1973 and 1990. Today, the fight for the dignity of the victims and their relatives continues. Their silence has been a major aspect of this issue, since there are still a number of unknown cases that have not been yet declared because of the pain and trauma that occurred. Chile was in a state of silence. In that state of silence, thousands of citizens lost their lives. Their names, those that are inscribed in the report of the truth of the Chilean Report National Commission on Truth and Reconciliations, are the clues of a fragmentary memory in a fragmentary country. I hope this book becomes part of the collective memory of Chile and remains always open. So this is like a brief introduction that I did in order that people could understand what happened, and then some bullet points from the Cold War and how historical events start affecting not just to Chile but to the old southern dictatorship. And then I randomly choose from the report 14 biographies of what was the people doing the last time they were seen. Of course, without criteria, but in a way to show how young they were, which ideology they had. So then the entire list alphabetically, starting from the disappeared and the executed. And those who still lives in silence. And then in the middle of the book, and also in the punctual box that contains the book, you can see two different landscapes, which are this is our identity somehow. So it's the Andes mountain and the Atacama Desert that looks beautiful, but they are not, since the bodies were thrown in this vast territory. So I wanted to state that through the aesthetic of the book. And then when you open the book, you start seeing some scenes through woodblock prints that are based on historical and very emblematic photographs, starting from the day of the coup. And when marches start, and more marches and families protesting, and how we're still marching against the government balance. While in the other side, you can see portraits of those 14 biographies that were represented on the other part of the book. What I am doing now is the case about Colonia Dignidad that I spent most of the time talking in the presentation, which for me is super important and for all Chileans, but also for the United States, but also for Germany, since it is like an open injury. It is still right there. It is still managed by ex-Nazis. There is no legislation, neither from the Chilean government, neither from the German government, so it's an open case that it is known that there are 9 to 10 mass graves, and nobody can go to escape. So this is the case that I have been researching. I have been looking into the archives. That has been super, super hard, even for journalists and even for people who belong to that story in first person. They opened the archives for us for this specific project, since it comes from the art perspective. But what I could not make for this was to draw something or to represent something like this, since it is something that is happening right now, is lived. So that's why I also added the performance action, since it is something that is also disappears, it's something that is happening right now. So what I did is this kind of box. This is my very first mock-up that I construct by myself. I'm super proud. So for example, my first thought it was how this mock-up can represent or can deconstruct symbols of power, but destruct them, reconstruct them. So for example, with the boxes, this is the SS sign. And for the National Archive, I'm doing this like super, super huge big, so there are 4 of those. And there will be like me plus 3 other performers. So everyone is gonna do choreography like by representing the symbols, but in the end, it's gonna just stay an idea of the bunker structures. So this is something that you can manipulate. And as you can see, this kind of noise also reminds you part of how the center operates. This is a very simple structure that constructs really complex symbols and spaces of segregation, as well as tunnels, cells, the SS, the swastika, the cross. So it turned into many different symbols, and my idea is to destruct the symbols in order to make a goal, to make this site a site of memory. So one put this here. composed about these 25 squares represent the land. This is the land that the Nazis, led by Paul Schaeffer, took with nobody knows money in 1961. And then they took this land, appropriated the land, and said that this was a utopian way of living inside, since Germans has like another quality of technology, of health, education. So that was the idea. So this specific site works as a state within another state, since it has their own rules, laws. So this state was surrounded by walls. At the same time, when I construct this kind of symbol, that is something that it should not be redo, never and ever. This symbol is something that was used like as when they rotate to the left meant, or it has like a relationship with the Asian indigenous culture, and when it rotates to the other side, it has, don't remember, but so my idea is to show how the Nazis appropriate a symbol that was, if you can see the Buddhas and a lot of stuff, you can see that this symbol is everywhere, but we haven't noticed because it was super appropriated during the World War II, meaning of they change the entire sense of the symbol of peace, converted into a symbol of an evil. So this symbol also turned into the cross. I'm not questioning the cross, I'm just saying that the agents that operate inside of the place were hidden behind this religious practice in order to bring people, and a lot of times happen that victims turn into victimarios, and then victimarios turns into victims, and once again the idea was to make people lose their conscience. They never talk in Spanish, they never had any kind of relation with TV, with the news, so that's kind of and it's also new and turns on to different spaces of segregation. The testimony that I have of Winfred, who we have been collaborating a lot, he never knew, he knew who their parents were when he turned the age of 20, when he escaped, because they didn't allow people to sleep together. Kids were working 24 hours on the earth, so everything hidden behind the religious practice, the agricultural economy, so this kind of community in the bad sense that we all have to work to make this world better, that without knowing what's happening inside. So that's why this kind of culture that is kind of a little bit ludic and sinister is kind of representing something what happened right there. Yeah, so what I do like is to come and touch and smell if you want, because I'm more close to the artwork that can be more friendly, rather than having this windows as a way to, I don't know, being more proximity and have this kind of intimacy that the artist books has. That is something that I do like a lot of book art format, since it can be also, I mean, I do like and I really enjoy when the Pompidou show your stuff and then it's like a jewel. But I also like when students can go pass through the pages, like see this, you know. So for me, it's super important that kind of opportunity. So this is how I have been thinking and spending my last 6 years of my life. And then this project, the one that I call Dignity, is about, of this case, Colonia Unida, and will be a performance at the National Archives with this kind of immersive audio with a very important document that Winfred found in these magnetic tapes on top of the ceiling of the current Villa Baviera, which they sell yogurts, marmalades. So this is also part of my archives that I want you to, if you want to see. And so these are the products of Villa Baviera. So this is, you saw some of the archives that I show right there, but this is how I have been thinking the case, gathering my own archives that are part of my backup information to really go and figure out this kind of political abstraction that I have been calling this specific work of art. And I'm very happy that the National Archives opened the archives to myself and to the writer of the exhibition and to the curator, so we can go, we could went and see how, and touch and feel and smell how these archives are still like a closed archives, not open to the public. So you can see how these memory issues are still in this kind of delay circle of that we don't know what's going to happen. So my proposal with the exhibition is to make a little bit more of pressure to the government and people who knows a lot of information and they're still inside. So I invite you, if you want to come or maybe ask me technical questions or not technical questions.